I'm 57 years old. I was 5 when the Knicks last won a championship. 5. And my attitude is this. If they could take out the reigning defending NBA champions, who can't they beat?
All right. So, boom, we are back with another week of F1 basketball, all your sports content. Sports chat with Sid. Let's get into it because we got a lot to cover today. Like, a lot to cover. Just everything that just happened between F1 and then basketball, who's heading to the conference finals, who's not. Then a little bit touch on the WNBA. I'm about to start rolling that out as the NBA season comes to a close. So we got lots to talk about. Let's get started with F1 and then we're going to get into the basketball. There's some drama. There is some drama this week, and it is all at Alpine. So Alpine, formerly known as Renault, French team, they basically just dropped their rookie driver Jack Doohan for Franco Colapinto. Now, Franco Colapinto is another rookie technically because he's never driven a full F1 season, but he was racing last year for Williams, and he did replace Logan Sargent last year on Williams for like the last couple of races, and he did really well. He did so well that people were clamoring at the bit like, "Yo, somebody gotta snatch him up." So Alpine snatched him up as a reserve driver. And from the moment the season started, he was on their throats. People were like, yo, if Jack Doohan doesn't do good, they got Franco Colapinto in the wings waiting. And that's essentially what happened. They had Jack do the first like 6 races. Didn't do too great. He DNF'd a few. Didn't finish in front of Pierre. Didn't finish in the points at all. And so they were like, well, we got Colapinto. Let's try it out. So they gave Colapinto the next 5 races to figure out who will be then driving for the rest of the season. So that is essentially what is happening at Alpine. They also had their team principal, Ali Stokes. He resigned randomly out of the blue May 5th. There was no real reasoning as to why he decided to like step down. It was really random. People were saying there might be some stuff personally or behind the scenes, but no one knows. As I'm doing research and no one can tell me anything. Like everything is just speculation onto what's happening, but he just steps down randomly. But then they have Flavio replace him. Now, if you don't know, I did cover Flavio in my like short TikTok series where I was going over Drive to Survive because they mentioned Flavio, right? Because if you're not deep into F1 lore, you're new to this. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. Let me just tell you something. This man had a lifetime ban from Formula One. Let's just start there. He was not supposed to be anywhere near this organization ever again after like 2008, 2007 because of this thing called Crashgate. Now, if you don't know what Crashgate is, I'm just going to give you a little tidbit. There were some sayings that he might have told one teammate to cause a crash at a certain time so that another teammate that was said maybe not all the way in the front but could get some advantage of a safety car got advantage of the safety car, if that makes sense. So it's not looking too good because, telling someone, hey, risk your life and crash this car just so that this other, your team player could get a safety car at a good time. Not only is it cheating, but also like morally very incorrect to tell someone, hey, crash your car. Can you do me a favor? Not just like pull over. I'm going to like say there's an engine problem. No. I want you to crash. So this man shouldn't even be here right now, but now he is the acting team principal of Alpine. I guess until they figure out who will be the next team principal, who knows? But Flavio is the talk of the town right now. He's has some other controversies around him, but that's all I'm gonna speak about today. But yeah, so Alpine's in a bit of a tizzy going into this weekend. That all happened during this break because we had like a week break between the last races and this race. So that all just happened for Alpine. So they are coming into Imola this weekend, not knowing what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right. Right now, we also have a little bit of tech talk to cover, and that is with McLaren. So they're saying, because McLaren got the fastest car right now, point blank, period. They're saying McLaren's had found a way to cool their tires. Now, tire cooling is not illegal, but it's a very slippery slope. Here's why. You can't technically cool your tires with water. So basically what would happen is you have like coolant water that goes through and cools your engines, cools some of your other systems down. You can do that. You have to do that. Regular cars have to do that. So F1 cars are definitely allowed to do that. However, when it comes to cooling your tires, you're technically not allowed to cool them with water. But what they're saying is McLaren has this substance, a coolant, whatever substance it may be, that is using that's helping kind of cool their tires and their brakes. They're trying to test it out to see if it's illegal or not. They brought it up to the stewards. They're still trying to deliberate on it. But as for right now, it's not illegal because it's technically not water. Who knows what it is, what substance or compound they have, but that's kind of what's helping them keep their tires cool, making sure that they have long tire wear, things like that. So that's what we have going into this week in Imola. Now, Imola is also a very special race. I'm not going to say the whole name of the race because this name of this race is like 20 names long. Like when I tell you it's supposed to be like the Imola, like AWS, this, that, and that, a representation of the son of Ferrari. Like it's a long name. Just know it's the home race for both the Ferraris, like both Ferraris in general, the company Ferrari, and for the new rookie Kimi Antonelli because he lives like like 40 miles away. So this is all of their home races, right? You're thinking they're gonna go in, they have the energy behind them, the crowd behind them. What's gonna happen? We go into quali. All of them, both Ferraris and Kimi Antonelli are out in Q2. Who could have seen that coming? Nobody. I don't even. And you want to know what the funny thing is? You want to know what's the funniest thing about this? Aston Martin, who hasn't been seen in the top 10 like within the last maybe 9 months, 10 months. Like they haven't been in the top 10 this year. I don't even think they were near the top 10 the end of last year. Like they were nowhere to be seen. All of a sudden, randomly, they just got this spout of energy and they were up in the top 10 in this quality session on mediums, mind you. On and this the reason for that, the reason for why it was on mediums. Let me actually get into that too, because that's a little bit of tech. But all right, so Pirelli bought softer tires. So what was happening was last year, Pirelli bought like a whole set of range of tires. I think it's C1 through C5. That's the range they bought. So what happens is Pirelli then chooses, like they're the tire company for across all of the cars, like all 20 drivers. They choose what allocation of tires are going to be used for the race weekend. They kind of do it based off of one, what would give the best offsets, or what would last the longest, or like not even last the longest sometimes, what would just make for a good race. Because what happened last year is a lot of races were one-stop races because the tires were technically really good and lasted really long, but that kind of makes for boring races, and they want to spice it up sometimes. And so to spice it up, what did they do this year? They bought like a step softer. So now they have the range of a C1 to a C6, which is like C6 would be the softest, C1 would be the hardest. So for this race in particular, this was the first race that they used the softest they like created for this year, which is a C6, right? So now the three tire compositions that they brought were the C6, the C5, and the C4, right? The C4 being the hardest one for this race, and then the C6 being the softest one for this race, and then the C5s being like the mediums. So they bring all these tires into this race, and people are like, "Yeah, this is the first time we're testing out the C6 in full. Not looking like a good tire." They're like, actually, it's looking worse than the C5s, which are the mediums. And the C6, they're supposed to be the softest. The softest tires are the ones that go the fastest. So they last the least. So like you only get really 10 to 20 laps out of them at most. But they're supposed to be like a whole second faster than like your next step up, which would be the mediums. Those tires were so bad. They were so like people could not tell, like they were like not lasting long, and they weren't even the quickest when they were lasting. So it was like, what's the point of these stupid tires? Like people honestly didn't even want to use them for the quali. Like for Q3, I think Russell and Mercedes, he went on the mediums to try and get a good lap pace instead of the softs because the mediums were actually working better than the softs at the time. And so that led to a whole thing. So Aston Martin on mediums got into Q3 before both Ferraris and Antonelli. That was just the wildest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, in the race, they still ended up not having race pace, so that kind of sucked for them. But like, just being able to out qualify both Ferraris, I was like, what is happening here? Like, I was so scared. I was like, I know the Williams already might be faster than Ferraris. I don't need Aston Martin to also be faster than the Ferraris. Like, what is going on? How did we get here?
What is happening? This is a bad dream. What is happening?
But anywho, not to fret, they didn't have the race pace. So we were cool off that. And then in the long run, our top three was Oscar from McLaren, Max, because he's just Max and he's going to be in the top three wherever he is. And then George, because like I said, George loves sneaking up on a podium. So that was our top three going into the race. So now, at the race, I didn't realize how great this race was going to be. This race was, to say the least, amazing to watch because of that different tire compounds and the offsets I had to go through. Oh, first of all, it was a warm day, so just so you know, Mercedes don't run well in warm weather. Never have from last year onwards. They just don't run well there. So Antonelli already being like out in Q3, out in Q2, I think he was 13th. It was not looking good for him. And then Russell in top three looked good, but then like the race pace, he just couldn't keep up. But anywho, so we started the race. Hamilton is 12th, Antonelli is 13th, Charles is 11th. I'm saying this because it's kind of important to where they end up later and like how the race kind of falls through. I already told you the top three beforehand. I think Lando was like fourth in there. And then you had like a few Williams and stuff like that. And like I mentioned in the Aston Martin, Stroll and Fernando Alonso, they was up there as well. So race starts, of course. Oscar's trying to defend Max. He kind of overthinks it a little bit, breaks a little bit too early, and then Max gets ahead of him. And then Max takes off. He ended up light years ahead. I didn't know. I thought McLaren's had the pace to catch up with him. Apparently, the Red Bull bought an upgrade, and that upgrade worked. At least for Max, because that man was gone out of sight from the first corner. He was out of there. So that started. The race started going well. Then there was the first couple of people coming in. So there's most of the people that were on medium tires, right? The medium seemed to be the best composition. Then there was a few people on the hard tires trying to test out like when they would fall off and if it would kind of last longer, especially because it's hot. Hards tend to be the better tire in that type of weather, but you never know with the cars, which cars are heavier, how much weight they're pulling with the gas they have, all that type of stuff. There's a lot of different things that go into it. So what happened is most of the people were on mediums, right? Around lap 10, 11, 12, the mediums started falling. People were like, oh, shoot, these mediums are not looking good. They're not looking like they're going to even last the laps they were supposed to last. Like mediums are supposed to last you like 20, like 25 to like 35 laps. Like they're supposed to be a good tire that can last you like half of the race if need be. These mediums was not looking good 10 laps in. There was people like, yo, I don't know if these mediums are going to last. I think they might have to be a two-stopper. Like this race is looking like it might be a two-stop race instead of a one-stop race because the predictions were saying it might be a one-stop. However, after you get past like this weird hump around 10 laps, they kind of resurrect at lap 20. Like it was really weird. Like I don't know what Pirelli are doing with these tires because it went from like, oh yeah, these tires are dead 10 laps in to like, oh no, they're coming back. We have race pace now 20 laps in. How that works, I don't know. They don't know. I don't even think Pirelli knows why it does that, but it does. So basically, people on the mediums were struggling at first, but then they started pitting. And this race, I will tell you, has some crazy undercut, meaning like you can undercut a lot of people. Leclerc went in on the mediums like after lap like 23, 24. He came out and ended up being like in the top four because of the undercut. Like that's how powerful it was in this race. So then we get a safety car. I think Ocon is the first safety car. Just power issue or engine issue with his car. He had to pull over the side of the road. That first safety car. So what happens under a safety car? Everybody and their mama pits. That's what happens under a safety car. So we get basically all the cars pitting. No incidents that we had like the last time a bunch of people went to the pits. But it basically just changed up the order by a lot. I couldn't even keep up with like how much it changed the order. Like I said, the two acid mines that were on top went from like fifth and sixth to like 15th to 16th. Like they went from up to all the way down. Um and then both Ferraris pitted, and then we had a tire switch, and then Leclerc was on the hard tires because he started on the mediums, and then Lewis was on the medium tires because he started on the hard tires. So that was a whole situation. So then they're racing after that first pit stop. I think Max is still in front because he is. And I think Oscar and Lando at this time also, because I don't think Lando pitted that first safety car. Anywho, we get to the second safety car. Now, the second safety car was a doozy. Feels bad. Feels so bad for Antonelli. This is his home race. He DNF'd at his home race, his first home race. And Toto couldn't even be there to be on the radio and be like, "It's okay, gimme. Like, you did fine." Like, no, none of that. Like, Toto wasn't even there. I think he had a graduation or something. So he wasn't there at all for Kimmy's first race. It was so sad. But he ended up DNFing. Something like again happened with his car. He had to pull over this side of the road. And so this second safety car was long as hell. It was long. Um, and then funny enough, I think because it was this. Funny enough, so Lando didn't pit the first safety car. He then pitted right before the second safety car. Like McLaren messed up their entire strategy. So then Lando ended up pitting like right before the second safety car. Feels bad. So then afterwards when Antonelli went off and then there was a second safety car, you had now everybody's talking, okay, should we pit, should we not pit? Because we're at about lap 50 something out of not 50, like 40 something out of like lap 63. That's how many laps there are like in this race. So there's about 17 laps left, right? When the safety car first starts. So now people are like, okay, we have 17 laps. If you had just pitted like a couple of laps before, you're like, okay, I could go all the way on these hards, but that means they're gonna fall off. And if there's people pitting now for like especially mediums, they're definitely, or even if they pit for like new hards, they're definitely gonna be faster just because they're gonna be younger tires. You ended up having the craziest offsets. Like right now, after the safety car, the offsets were like you had somebody with I think it was who had 24. I think Oscar had like 24 laps on his hards at this point. Lando had 6. Uh Charles had 24 laps on his hards and then Lewis had 7 laps. Like the tire offsets after the second safety car were absolutely insane. Um so yeah, there was some miscommunication with Ferrari of course because they were trying to convince Charles to pit, and he was like he wanted to pit, but then they weren't sure if they were going to pit for softs or for hards, knowing that the softs are the fastest for like 5 laps, but they didn't know if they could last 17 laps. But then all of a sudden he saw that Hamilton was pitting and decided not to pit because he was like, I don't want to be stuck behind Hamilton because what happens is if you double stack, then you're just that second person gets the short end of the stick. Like your pit stop goes from like 2.5 seconds as the average to about like 4 seconds. Like you lose a lot more time. Um, and so Hamilton's the pitting, Leclerc doesn't pit. Some people pit like in the beginning of the safety car. Some people pit a little bit later. That safety car lasted for 7 laps. I don't know where the hell Antonelli ended up parking because that safety car lasted for so long to the point where like at this point all the cars had bunched up. Ali Behrman, who was the second Haas, he was being lapped by Max, and so they had to unlap him, and then they had to wait for him to get to the back of the pack. By this point, all the cars have bunched up, so any type of undercut or any space that you had in between, gone. Like, is absolutely gone at this point. So now, like I said, the tire offsets 24/6, 24/7. Everyone's close together. It's gonna be a sprint. Like they had after the safety car ended, there was like 10 laps left. There's a full out sprint to the end. So then Max, of course, loves a safety car restart because this man warms up his tires, and I think I've caught on to like what he likes to do. He likes to take a corner really slow and then punch it at the end. So like he when the safety car ends, the person in front gets to control when they start. Like they are the ones that get to control. Like he can start in the middle of the straight, he can start in the middle of a corner, he can start wherever. So what he likes to do is I've caught on is like whenever the safety car ends, he likes to take it, and as soon as he gets to like a corner, he punches it like right at the end of the corner. So he takes off. Oscar is behind him at this point, but remember his tires are much older than Lando's. Lando is coming in behind him, and then the Ferraris are also like neck and neck, and they're all up there. I think there's Alex Albon, who's a Williams, that's splitting the Ferraris. Anywho, long story short, Lando tells the radio, "Yo, Oscar's tires are looking pretty used. So are y'all gonna tell him to let me through, or are we gonna duke this out?" And I think they ended up letting them like fight it out. It was a clean fight. Like, you know, when two people on the same team end up like having to like fight each other, usually the team just says keep it clean, like don't crash out, don't do nothing stupid. You could race hard, but don't race stupid. Unlike if you're racing somebody like Max, where you have to kind of run them off the road. So that basically is what happened. They ended up doing like a little tidbit, but Oscar knew that his tires couldn't keep up with it, so Oscar kind of let him. I wouldn't say he let him through, but like he didn't really fight it as hard. So Lando ends up second. Oscar was third. Lewis then goes through. I think he was sixth at this point. So yeah, what happens is he was sixth because Charles was in front of him. Because like I said, Charles had the higher. His hards were more used because he had the 24 laps under his hards, where Lewis had the 7. So Charles is in front. Alex is in between them, and then is him. He was like, you know, Alex and Charles were fighting. Lewis came through, basically caught on to both of them, and just took off with the younger hards. And then what you would call it? Charles couldn't fight Alex off, so Charles ended up slipping back to 6th place. Lewis gets 4th. He was trying to go for that podium and fight for Oscar, but there just wasn't enough time, especially since that safety car took 7-11 days to like go through. But anyway, it ended up being a really good race. I actually really liked that race. I probably will rewatch it later just because like I said, it was hard to keep up with. There's the 2 safety cars and all the crazy undercutting, like figuring out like why people ended up in 12th place and not in 5th. Like it was crazy, but a very good race nonetheless. You know, the same people won again because they're just good racers and they have really fast cars. And then I'm going to do a prediction for Monaco. Monaco is the biggest race of the season. It is also one of the most boring races ever. Reason being is because there's not a lot of room on this track. Like it's basically racing through the streets of Monaco. A lot of slow corners, tight corners. You have to be very, very precise. But it's not made for this generation of car. The cars are they're too thick. Them cars is too thick. And there's not a lot of overtaking on this track. There's very few places, like maybe one or two places where you can like truly overtake. But other than that, like, and even if you do, it's tight. Like you're risking your car and the other person's car if you try to overtake. But it's a race for qualifying. So the main race is the qualifying, and whoever gets a good place in qualifying usually ends up like staying there. Like there's no real changes in order from qualifying day. So as I say that, and you know, we talked about Ferraris. Charles Leclerc is a person that is driving for Ferrari. He also won the Monaco Grand Prix last year. It is his home race as well because he was born and raised in Monaco. I don't think they have the pace this year. I don't think he will be in the top 3. I think he might be hovering around 4th or 5th. If he's lucky, he can get like a top 3. But luck hasn't really been on Charles' side so much. It's very much not been his thing, but we'll see what he can do.
My God, my God, my God, my God.
Well, that sums up Charles Leclerc's feelings on that one. Neither Ferrari is.
We'll see what he can do. Like I said, I think he'll have around 4 or 5. But that's the only reason why I mentioned him in particular, because of like this is his home race. He won last year, but who knows if he could win this year. Ferrari is honestly not looking that good, especially because this is a qualifying heavy race and they qualified 11th and 12th this past weekend. As for the top 3, my predictions is going to be Lando, George, and Kimi. I think Lando does really well here. I think the McLaren is strong enough. I also think Mercedes is strong enough, and I feel like George and Kimmy have kind of like the precision to drive this one really well. I think there would be a surprise for Monaco. Oscar is up there, but who knows if he can do it. These are just my predictions. This is just what I'm feeling for Monaco. Um, but yeah, we'll see how that goes this weekend. Like I said, I'll try to stay up for this race. It's not the most exciting race. All the fanfare around it, lovely. I would love to go to Monaco one day because to see the race, because although the race is boring, all the fanfare and everything that goes on like outside of the actual track, prime. But on the track, snoozer. Anywho, let's get into some basketball. All right, so boom, we are back with the basketball. So now we're going to head into some basketball chat. I'm gonna talk about my favorite series thus far, the Knicks versus Celtics. As a true Knicks fan, I must say, I told y'all so. I said it was gonna be Knicks in 6. Now, from the last week's episode, we was coming off a 2-game streak. I think Boston had just won, so it was 2-1 to us. And then the next game got dicey. The next game got very dicey. Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, they was going bar for bar, shot for shot, like 3 point for 3 point, 2 for 2, back and forth. It was getting close. I think both of them were on the route to like a 40-point game if they didn't get so already. However, fourth quarter, Tatum gets hurt. Now, as a Knicks fan, could I be happy about this? Yes. But as a kind person, I don't want to see nobody get hurt. That, like, especially like the injury he got, he basically had a ruptured Achilles tendon. So not only is he out for, or was he out for the rest of the playoffs, he was going to be out for basically next year. Which is it's not good. It's not never a good thing when someone gets hurt, especially that bad. It really was upsetting, especially to see him like he couldn't even stand up. He was already playing through like kind of like a thumb injury. So yeah, unfortunately, Tatum gets hurt in like the fourth quarter of that game. And so Knicks win, so they're up 3-1. Boston goes back home. They said we had to win. They had to win one at least for Tatum, which I respect. Like you can't just get blown out, especially after the best player goes down. They showed up and they showed out when we came back to Boston. They didn't want to get blown out like that. So it was now 3-2. But then on Saturday, Knicks back at the Garden. Knicks pulled off that win. Thank God. Everyone was on their P's and their Q's. That's what I wanted to see. Everyone was getting their 20 points. Cat got his 20. Jalen Brunson got his 20. And Nobi, that's what I wanted. And Nobi got his 20. Mikal Bridges got his 20. I can't believe I forgot their names. I'm really about to cut all that out. And if I don't, you're going to see some snide comment. So yeah, everybody got their points. Thank God. So the Knicks ended up winning 4-2. A great time to get into the conference finals. This is the first time the Knicks have been to the conference finals in over 20 years. My entire lifetime. The last time the Knicks went to the Eastern State Conference Finals was in the 90s. Like, it was been over 20 years. It was the Garden was up, New York was up. Everybody was happy as hell. But a conversation that I heard a little ping, and no one really wanted to touch on it because it goes against our beloved Carmelo. Now, we all love Carmelo. He was on the Knicks for about like 7 to 8 seasons, from 2010 to 2017. Had the run of his life with the Knicks. Had a 62-point game in 2014. Came through with Hoodie Mello. We love Hoodie Mello. But Hoodie Mello couldn't take us to the conference finals. Does this put a stain on Carmelo Anthony's record? To me, a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little stain. Like, he's still an all-star. He still, like, has rings in both of the Olympics. Because he doesn't have any championship rings, unfortunately. He still is regarded as one of the top players, will be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think, this year. And so, he still has his accolades, and they're very great. They're great accolades. But he could not get the beloved Knicks to the conference finals. And I'm not going to be like, yeah, but he didn't have a team around him and blah, 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 because the people that he has on his team, now, they weren't the best. I'm not going to sit here and be like they were, you know, they were the top players and all of that. But he had Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith, Hampton Hardy Jr., a pretty solid team. Like that was the team that I think that made it the furthest within the playoffs. Was kind of those three, and Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith. I think also both got a ring with LeBron at the Cavs. Don't quote me on this. Now it's LeBron who he can carry a team by himself on his back. When that was back when he was a little bit younger in his mid-30s. Now he's 40 and he can't really do that like that no more. But back then he could carry a whole team by himself if he really wanted to. So I'm not going to sit here and compare Carmelo to LeBron because that's not what we're doing. But it does put a little dent into Carmelo's history that he couldn't get us there, and Jalen Brunson could, and the Nova Knicks. Just putting that out there. Now, he was during the time of like the super team. You had your LeBron. You're going against LeBron in his prime. You're going against a up and coming Steph Curry team. You're going against KD in his prime. So I'm not saying that he didn't have to go against some maniacs. Like he was going against some beasts. But we just couldn't pull it out with Carmelo, unfortunately. And that was just my little tidbit. What do you put in the comments what y'all think about this? If if you're a Knicks fan, especially if you're a Carmelo fan, in particular, how you feel about this is the first time being in the conference finals in over 20 years, and how that looks on Carmelo and the team at that time or over the course of the last 20 years. Just let me know what you think because it's an interesting conversation to have. Now we're gonna move forward with the Cleveland, the Pacers. Pacers won that one in 5. Also, another injury. Donovan Mitchell suffered another non-contact injury. His was more like a re-injury of his ankle, and he was able to come back. I think for the last games, but they just couldn't pull it together enough to beat the Pacers. Unfortunately, the Cavs just couldn't put all the pieces together. They had an amazing year, being number 1 in the NBA. Literally did not lose the first 15 to 20 games of this season. Had an amazing run, but just could not pull it together for the playoffs, unfortunately. So Pacers win in 5, and now we have a Pacers-Knicks series. We coming back. We coming back from last year. They beat us last year and they got into the Eastern Conference Finals before we could. We also had some injuries. So I'm gonna talk about that later in prediction. We had some injuries, but we coming back for that rematch. We having that Knicks Pacers rematch. Anywho, let's head to the West. Now on the West, we had Golden State Warriors versus the Timberwolves. And all I'm going to say is I knew the Timberwolves had it. Now I thought it was going to be a closer series. I thought both West games were going to go to 7. I thought, Golden State would come back. Timberwolves was kind of, wishy-washy. They wasn't showing up them first couple of games, especially Ant was not showing up them first 2-3 games. I was like, yo, y'all gonna make this go to 7 if you keep playing like this. Unfortunately, Steph gets hurt, so he has his hamstring injury. So, yeah, from last week, we were talking about that foul trouble. And I was like, if Golden State gets into any more foul trouble, we're going to have some issues, right? If Draymond fouls out, it's not going to be a good look. The team is not going to be as cohesive. Like I said, they were trying to fill in the pieces with Kuminga and all of them, especially when Steph went out. However, they stayed out of foul trouble, which was good. But, Anthony Edwards, the rest of the team, they finally warmed up. They started having some great games, dropping 20-plus games. And Jimmy and Draymond and even most of the rest of the team just couldn't keep up. Like the Golden State Warriors couldn't keep up. They were hoping to pull out at least a couple wins to get to the game 6 so that Steph could be reevaluated and hopefully come back. And they couldn't even get to the 6th win. They couldn't even get to the 6th game so that Steph could come back. So the Timberwolves won in 5. And they had a lot of rest about to go into that West Coast series for this week. So we'll see how that ends up happening. The next thing, OKC versus Denver. Now, this one was a tight one. This one was a back and forth close match, 7 games. This is actually, now I'm thinking about it, the only one that went to 7 games out of those last semifinals. Yeah, this is the only one. that went to 7 games. Surprisingly so. I thought there was going to be a few other ones that are going to go to 7. And OKC and Denver were the only ones. Back and forth, trading games. Nuggets had a great game at their home court. But in game 7, whoo, child, they could not keep up. They could not keep up in game 7. What? OKC showed why they're the number 1 seed in the West. They came through and just ran a clinic. Now, unfortunately, again, injuries. Injuries is I feel like everybody keep talking about this because they even were like, "Oh, does the Knicks win have an asterisk because of injuries? Does this win have an asterisk because of injuries?" Bro, every single playoff series has an asterisk because of injuries. Like, you can't go through any playoff series, like any single one, and be like, "Oh, well, they should have win and shouldn't have win asterisks because like this player was hurt, or this player was playing hurt, or they were sick, or this player was out because they were injured." I feel like from the last like 10, 15 years, you're not going to have any playoff win. You're not going to have any playoff finals win, conference wins, whatever, without having injuries. Like, they're just so injury prone these days that you're never going to make it through the playoffs without somebody getting injured from either non contact, a contact. Like, it's just not happening. It's not happening. So to me, there should be no asterisks of like, oh, just because they won, but this person was out, or this team won, but their star player was out, or their other player was sick. There's no asterisks. Everybody's sick. Everybody's injured. This is the playoffs. Like, you either win or you lose with your star player or without your star player. And so, sorry, I just had to get that off because I heard some people talking about the Knicks because Jason Tatum went down. And I was like, everyone has injuries. There's injuries throughout the entire team. Like I mentioned an injury literally in every single one of these series. Somebody is injured. Like, there's always going to be somebody injured. So that's what I'm talking about with the OKC and Denver, because Aaron Gordon was iffy to play for game 7 because he had agreed to a hamstring strain. And so he came through and started game 7. You could tell he was playing like really careful, like he was trying not to like overextend too much, but he still got his rebounds. He still like got his couple points here and there, but he wasn't as explosive as he usually is, which makes sense. He was trying to just last as long as possible. But, him and Jamal Murray, they were struggling to get their shots. And so they just couldn't pull it together to win the game 7. And OKC took it away by like 30 points. Like, they closed that game out. They said, yeah, we didn't come to play. Sorry about your injuries, but cut your losses. We go into the finals. And so now we have the setup for the conference finals week predictions. Somebody new's gonna get a ring. Every single team on here is a new team that don't have a ring yet, or hasn't have a ring in over like 20 some years. Like, some of these players, like, somebody new is getting a ring this year. That's all I gotta say. Like, somebody new is getting a ring, and that's very exciting to see. So we're gonna get into some predictions. So, Knicks versus Pacers. I said it before, I say it again, I will say it until my face turns blue. Knicks in 6. I think Knicks go all the way. I am a full-blown believer. I think, in 6 is a good thing for the Knicks. They're going to give away a game or two. Cat's not going to show up for a game. Josh Hart might not show up for a game. Mikal Bridges might not show up for a game. But if we can just pull our shit together for 4 games, it don't got to be in a row. It could be sporadic. But we just got to get our shit together for 4 games. We can make it. And I think we got that. I think the Knicks in 6, we back with the Pacers. Like I said, we lost to them last year because we had a few injuries. Now we coming in. Everybody is pretty healthy. Knock on wood. I'm knocking on some wood right now. Everybody is pretty healthy. So let's keep that going. However, with that being said, and I'm saying Knicks in 6, like I said, everyone needs to get their shit together. Each of their person. Cat needs 20 points. Brunson needs 20 points. Mikal, I need about a good 15 from you. And Anobi, I need about a good 15 from you. With that being said, I don't think they get it in the first round. Sorry, not sorry. That first game, I don't think they have it together. Something about when the Knicks have a little break, they lose some of that momentum. They lose some of that energy. I think they love being the underdog. Now, the Knicks have home court advantage, which is good. But I think first game, home court, like, they just have too much will when they're the underdog, that I think they're coming in off this game high. This is the first time they're back in the conference finals in years. The momentum of the city is with them, and I think they'll crumble. Sorry, not sorry. I think they will crumble in the first game. Now, I'm still Knicks in 6. So, second game, we're coming back. But we just love being the underdog. So, we got to lose the first one to have a good comeback story for the second one. That's just my opinion. That's just how I'm feeling. Knicks lose the first game, come back for the next 2, maybe 3, and Knicks in 6. Now for the West. Wolves and OKC. Both young teams. Both fast-paced games. Both led by some fine-ass men. Let's talk about it, actually. I try to be very professional on here. I try not to go into that too much. Anthony Edwards and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are fine. So whoever wins, it doesn't matter to me. But going back into my serious mode, I think the series goes to 7. Like I said, they're both young. They're both fast-paced games. I think they both have a well-thought-out system. I think OKC have a little advantage over the Timberwolves. I don't know why. I feel like OKC just has a little bit more kind of thought and rhythm to their system than the Timberwolves does. We'll see. I think it will really come down to the bigs. I think Rudy Gobert and who was the bigs on OKC? I forgot his name. I think it's Şengün. AC Runster. Oh no, Holmgren. Okay, Holmgren is the one on the OKC. I think Holmgren, Rudy. I think it comes down to the bigs. I think the bigs are going to be actually the difference makers in this series. Like I said, I think the series goes to 7. I think OKC have the advantage first game. It's their home court advantage, so I think they get the first 1, maybe 2 against the Wolves. We'll see what happens after that, but I think the first one goes to OKC. But we are in for a great series coming up. I am very excited for these conference finals. Now, the WNBA has officially started. Now, I'm not an avid watcher of the WNBA. I'm going to be honest with y'all. But I'm going to try. I'm going to start watching. I know about Asia Wilson. I know about Caitlin Clark. I know about Angel Reese. Those are the names that I've been hearing constantly over and over again. The NWA has taken a leap into the stratosphere. Everyone's talking about it now. So I must talk about it now. And I'm very excited to get into these games, honestly. Like I said, and if I start saying the girls are fighting, girls is a gender neutral term. I talk about it for the men and for the women because this week the girls were fighting. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark were fighting. And I think they both kind of play it up because it's good for the numbers of not only WNBA but their personal numbers as well. Gets people talking about them, more money in their pockets. Honestly. But Caitlin hit her with a hard foul. Hit Angel Reese with wrapped her around and damn near threw her to the ground like WWE style. And Angel Reese came up and said, "Girl, I'll clock you out." She almost jumped at her. Caitlin didn't want nothing to do with that though. She walked away. But yeah, they brought some eyes and some drama to that game. That's the only clip I've been seeing. I know I think the Indiana Fever, which is Caitlin Clark's team, they won that game by 20-some points. So, Chicago Sky got to come back. They got to play a little bit better. But that's the only clip I saw is of them fighting. And like I said, those are the names that you'll hear the most often. But I'm going to, dive deeper into the WNBA, let y'all know about all the sports tea, what's been going over there, their stats, their players. And we're going to get into it as the NBA finals kind of come to a close, right? So that is my overall sports update for this week. See y'all later.